The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Meridian Ballroom scattered light across 10,000 square feet of champagne-colored silk and polished mahogany. I sat at table 17, wedged between a retired cardiologist who had fallen asleep and a pharmaceutical sales representative who kept trying to sell me antidepressants, watching my husband accept the most prestigious award in cardiac surgery. My husband, Dr. Marcus Haled, 43 years old, silver-templed, square-jawed, wearing a Tom Ford tuxedo I had paid for with the royalties from a surgical patent he had stolen from me 4 years ago. He stood at the podium beneath a banner that read, International Cardiac Innovation Summit, Surgeon of the Decade, his hands wrapped around the engraved crystal trophy, his smile the smile of a man who had never doubted he deserved everything the universe had ever given him. Thank you, Marcus said, his voice warm and practiced. This is an incredible honor. When I first conceptualized the Hale ventricular support device, I never imagined it would revolutionize cardiac surgery the way it has, countless lives saved, global recognition. And tonight, this award. The audience applauded. 2,000 of the most respected medical professionals in the world gathered for the annual summit, clapping for a man who hadn't conceptualized anything except the lie he'd been telling for half a decade. My fingers tightened around my wine glass, the Hale ventricular support device. Even the name made me want to vomit. I had called it the heart valve when I sketched the first prototype on a legal pad at our kitchen table, 18 months into our marriage. I had shown it to Marcus because he was my husband and I trusted him, because he had kissed my forehead and said, "We're a team, Vivian. Your discoveries are our discoveries." 3 weeks later, he had filed the patent, under his name, alone. When I confronted him, he had cried, actual tears. "I was trying to protect you," he'd said. "The medical device industry is brutal. If they knew a woman invented it, they'd never take it seriously. Let me be the face. You do the work you love, the surgery, the patients, but I'll handle the business side." And I had let him, because I loved him, because I was 31 years old and desperate to believe that my marriage was a partnership, not a hostile takeover. Because I had spent my entire life fighting to be taken seriously as a female cardiothoracic surgeon, and the idea of fighting my own husband as well was simply too exhausting to contemplate. And now, Marcus continued from the podium, his smile widening, I have another announcement. Something personal. Something I've been waiting to share with all of you for a very long time. A woman appeared from the wings of the stage, Tiffany Reed, 26 years old. A surgical nurse who had joined our hospital 18 months ago and had been assigned to Marcus's operating room 6 months after that. She was wearing a scarlet dress that hugged her figure like wet paint, and her blonde hair cascaded over bare shoulders in waves that had taken hours and hundreds of dollars to achieve. She walked to Marcus, and he pulled her close, his hand sliding around her waist, his palm pressing flat against the unmistakable swell of her belly. 5 months, maybe 6. My wine glass cracked in my hand. A thin line of blood traced down my palm. No one noticed. "Tiffany and I are having a baby," Marcus announced, and his voice was thick with rehearsed emotion. "A son." After years of disappointment, after accepting that fatherhood might never be in my future, I finally found someone who can give me the family I've always wanted. The audience murmured. 2,000 had swiveled, not toward the stage, but toward me. Table 17 to the wife. The one everyone knew had suffered 2 miscarriages and been told she would likely never carry a pregnancy to term. The one who had been conspicuously absent from hospital social events for the past year, and everyone had assumed it was because she was busy with surgeries, but now they were all recalculating. Marcus followed their gaze and found my face. His expression shifted, not to guilt, not to apology, but to that particular mask of sorrowful compassion that abusers learned to wear when they wanted to look like the victim. "Vivian," he said into the microphone, "I know this is difficult. I wanted to tell you privately, but the situation has become untenable. You've been struggling for so long. The mood swings. The erratic behavior, the accusations against the staff. The hospital board has been concerned. I've been concerned. Everyone here tonight deserves to know the truth." He pulled a folder from inside his tuxedo jacket. I recognized the logo on the front, the psychiatric institute where Marcus had sent me for evaluation 6 months ago, after I'd confronted him about the hotel receipts I'd found in his briefcase. According to Dr. Reinhardt's report, Marcus said, opening the folder and reading aloud, "Dr. Vivian Harthale demonstrates symptoms consistent with paranoid personality disorder, including delusional jealousy, persecutory ideation, and intermittent breaks with reality. She has made repeated false allegations against her husband and has been deemed a potential risk to patient safety if her condition continues untreated. The ballroom erupted, voices overlapping, chairs scraping, phones lifting. I saw the retired cardiologist wake up with a snort. I saw the pharmaceutical representative's eyes go wide. I saw my own career being dismantled, piece by piece, in front of 2,000 of my peers. Therefore, Marcus continued, his voice heavy with fake regret, the hospital board has voted to suspend Dr. Harthale's surgical privileges effective immediately, pending a full psychiatric review. And I have filed for divorce. I cannot continue to live with someone who has become a danger to herself and others. Tiffany has been my rock through this nightmare. She has given me hope when I had none, and soon she will give me the son my wife could never provide. Tiffany pressed herself against him, her hand cupping her belly, her smile beatific. I just want to say, she said into the microphone, her voice sweet and trembling, that I never meant to hurt anyone, but Marcus deserves a real partner. Someone who supports him instead of tearing him down. Someone who can be a mother to his children. I'm just grateful I can give him what Vivian never could. The silence that followed was the silence of 2,000 people collectively deciding they had just witnessed something either profoundly tragic or profoundly scandalous, and waiting to see which direction the tide would turn. My palm was still bleeding. I wrapped it in my napkin and stood up. Sit down, Vivian. Marcus's voice sharpened. This isn't a time for one of your episodes. An episode. My voice came out steady, surprising, really, that I had expected it to shake. You just announced your mistress's pregnancy at a medical gala, read a forged psychiatric report aloud in front of 2,000 of my colleagues, suspended my surgical privileges, and filed for divorce. And you're calling this my episode? Security, Marcus said into the microphone. Could someone please escort Dr. Harthale to a quiet room? She's clearly agitated. For her own safety. 2 men in dark suits started moving toward my table. I didn't look at them. I looked at Marcus. You've been planning this for a while, I said. The psychiatric evaluation, the suspension, the divorce, the patent theft, it's all connected. You needed me discredited so no one would believe me when I exposed what you did. I have no idea what you're talking about. Marcus shook his head sadly. This is exactly what the report described. Delusional persecution. Vivian, I'm so sorry you're suffering. Please, let the security team help you. The patent, I said. The Hale ventricular support device. The one that just won you Surgeon of the Decade. Who invented it, Marcus? Tell everyone. Who drew the first prototype at our kitchen table? Who spent 18 months refining the valve mechanism while you were at conferences with your nurses? Who has the original dated notebooks with the design sketches, the mathematical proofs, the email correspondence with the FDA? Marcus's face flickered, just for a moment. Then the mask slid back into place. You're not well, Vivian. Your memory has been unreliable for years. Everyone knows this. The notebooks you're referring to, if they even exist, are likely fabrications created by your paranoid mind. The patent office verified my claim. The device bears my name. This is reality. Your name, I repeated. Your name on my invention, your name on my career, your name on my hospital, my bank account, my life. You've been erasing me for 5 years, Marcus. Slowly, methodically, like a surgeon removing a tumor. But I'm not a tumor, I'm the woman who made you, and I'm done letting you pretend otherwise. Tiffany stepped forward, her belly leading. You're just jealous, you're old and barren and bitter, and you can't stand that Marcus found someone who actually makes him happy. You've been holding him back for years. Everyone in the hospital knows it. The way you'd call his, or just to check up on him. The way you'd question his surgical decisions in front of the residents. You're controlling, emasculating. Tiffany. Marcus held up a hand. She's not well. We shouldn't engage. Actually, I think you should engage. I reached into my clutch and pulled out my phone because I have something I'd like to share with everyone here. A little presentation. Since we're making announcements. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Whatever you're about to do, don't. You'll only embarrass yourself. I ignored him. I pressed a button on my phone, and the massive screens behind the stage flickered to life. The summit's logo vanished, replaced by a scanned document, the original patent application for the heart valve, dated 18 months before Marcus's filing, with my signature at the bottom. The audience leaned forward, phones lifted higher. Where did you get that? Marcus's voice had gone tight. That's a forgery. She's fabricated these. She's been planning this conspiracy for months. This is the original filing with the International Patent Registry, I said calmly. Dated March 14th, 5 years ago. You filed your version 18 months later, in September, claiming independent invention. But here's what you didn't know, Marcus. When I filed the original, I also filed supporting documentation. Emails, design logs, time-stamped photographs of my prototypes, and a witness statement from the FDA reviewer who handled my initial consultation. I pressed another button. The screen filled with email chains, their headers clearly visible, timestamps, sender addresses, the FDA domain. Marcus's face had gone the color of old bone. That's not. Those are faked. You've doctored these. And here's the witness statement. I continued. From DR. Helen Mirren, senior medical device reviewer at the FDA, confirming that I consulted with her office regarding the heart valve on February 3rd, 5 years ago, and that she personally reviewed my initial design specifications. She's here tonight, actually. Table Ford, Dr. Mirren. Would you mind standing up? A woman in a navy suit rose from a table near the front. She was 60 years old, silver-haired, with the unshakable authority of someone who had spent 3 decades inside the most powerful regulatory agency in medicine. The entire ballroom knew her name. The entire ballroom trusted her word. I reviewed Dr. Harthale's submission personally, Dr. Mirren said, her voice carrying without a microphone. The patent was filed correctly, with full documentation. Any subsequent filing claiming independent invention of the same device is, at best, fraudulent. I've submitted my statement to the Patent Office's investigative division. They opened a formal inquiry this morning. The ballroom imploded. Voices erupted from every table. Journalists who had been covering the summit from medical journals scrambled for their laptops. The hospital board members sitting at table 2 were huddled in urgent, panicked whispers. Tiffany's beatific smile had vanished, replaced by the wide-eyed expression of a woman who had just realized her meal ticket was being canceled. Marcus grabbed the microphone stand. This is a setup. Helen Mirren has a personal vendetta against me. She's friends with Vivian. This is all. The Patent Office doesn't care about personal vendettas, Dr. Mirren said calmly. They care about documentation, and the documentation is overwhelming. You stole your wife's invention, Dr. Hale. You filed a fraudulent patent, and you profited from it for years while systematically destroying her reputation. That's not just unethical. That's criminal. Tiffany grabbed Marcus's arm. Marcus, do something. You said everything was legal. You said the patent was yours. Shut up. Marcus shook her off. His composure had shattered. His face was red, his eyes wild, his tuxedo suddenly looking less like a symbol of achievement and more like a costume slipping off a fraud. This isn't over. Did I have lawyers? Did I have the hospital board? I have. You have nothing. The voice came from the back of the ballroom. Every head turned. A man in a perfectly cut charcoal suit was walking down the center aisle, flanked by 2 assistants and a security detail that moved with the quiet, coordinated efficiency of a presidential escort. He was tall, silver-haired, with a kind of presence that made rooms go quiet without him having to ask, but I knew his face. Everyone in medicine knew his face. Julian Cross, the CEO of Aegis Medical International, the largest private healthcare conglomerate in the world, the company that owned our hospital, that owned 17 other hospitals across North America, that controlled medical device patents worth more than the GDP of several small countries. Julian Cross walked past Marcus, past Tiffany, past the hospital board table, and stopped directly in front of me. Dr. Hart, he said, and his voice resonated through the silent ballroom. I apologize for my lateness. The board meeting ran long. I hope I haven't missed the most important part. Not at all, Mr. Cross. I extended my hand. He shook it, then turned to face the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, Julian Cross said, I've been listening from the back of the room for the past 10 minutes, and I think it's time everyone here understood exactly who DR. Vivian Hart actually is. Marcus took a step forward. Mr. Cross, with all due respect, this is a personal matter, a marital dispute. IT has nothing to do with Aegis Medical. Vivian is a surgeon at one of your hospitals, yes, but she's not. She's not anyone of significance to your organization. She's just. Julian Cross raised an eyebrow. Dr. Hale, do you know why I'm here tonight? I'm not here as a guest. I'm here at the request of the chairwoman of our board of directors, who specifically asked me to attend this summit and observe the proceedings. Chairwoman. Marcus's voice cracked. What chairwoman? I don't. The Aegis board is chaired by a woman who prefers to keep her identity private, Julian Cross said smoothly. A woman who, 6 years ago, was a brilliant cardiac surgeon with a revolutionary idea for a ventricular support device. She approached Aegis Medical with her prototype and her patent, and she made us an offer. She would license her technology to Aegis, but she would also invest a significant portion of her personal fortune into the company, becoming our largest single shareholder. In exchange, she would be given a seat on the board, and her identity would be kept confidential, so she could continue practicing surgery without the distraction of public attention. The board agreed, the deal was signed, and for the past 6 years, that woman has been my boss. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. The kind of silence that preceded earthquakes, avalanches, the collapse of empires. Your boss, Marcus whispered. Vivian is your boss? Dr. Vivian Hart is the founder of the heart valve technology, Julian Cross said, his voice ringing with cold, precise satisfaction. She is the holder of 12 other medical device patents currently under development at Aegis. She is the majority shareholder of Aegis Medical International. She is the chairwoman of our board of directors, and as of tonight, she has asked me to inform this gathering that Aegis Medical is initiating legal proceedings against DR. Marcus Hale for patent fraud, intellectual property theft, and conspiracy to commit corporate espionage. Tiffany screamed. Actually screamed, a raw, animal sound that tore through the ballroom. That's not true, Marcus. Tell them it's not true. You said you were the inventor. You said the company was yours. You said. I said, shut up. Marcus shoved her away, and she stumbled, nearly falling before one of the security team caught her. Marcus's face had gone white, then red, then a sort of mottled purple. This is a nightmare. This is a nightmare. Vivian, please, I'm your husband. We can work this out. We can. There's nothing to work out. I stepped forward, my heels clicking against the marble floor, and every camera in the room tracked my movement. You stole my invention. You filed a fraudulent patent. You used my money to fund your lifestyle while you had an affair with a surgical nurse and got her pregnant. You faked a psychiatric report to have me declared mentally incompetent. You tried to destroy my career, my reputation, my life, and you did all of it because you thought I was weak, because you thought I was just your quiet, hardworking wife who would never fight back. I turned to the audience, my voice rising. You all know Marcus Hale. You've worked with him, you've respected him, you voted for him for awards and promoted his research and believe his lies. And why wouldn't you? He's charming. He's brilliant at stealing other people's work. He spent 5 years building a career on my foundation, and none of you ever questioned it. None of you ever asked why a man who barely passed his surgical board suddenly became a genius inventor overnight. You just accepted it. Because he's a man and I'm a woman, and in this industry, that's still enough to make you believe him over me. I saw faces in the crowd shift, from shock to shame, from shame to anger. The pharmaceutical sales representative at my table was crying. The retired cardiologist was wide awake now, his eyes bright with righteous fury. But I'm not asking you to believe me, I said. I'm showing you the evidence, the patents, the emails, the testimony. All of it is public record as of tonight. All of it is being filed with the Patent Office, the FDA, the Medical Licensing Board, and the Federal Prosecutor's Office to be why morning everyone in the world will know what Marcus Hale did. And everyone who helped him do it. The hospital administrators who signed off on his fraudulent reports, the board members who voted to suspend me, the colleagues who looked the other way, they will all be answering for their complicity. Julian Cross stepped forward. Aegis Medical will be conducting a full internal investigation. Every hospital administrator who participated in this conspiracy will be terminated. Every board member who voted to suspend Dr. Hart will be removed, and DR. Marcus Hale will be stripped of his hospital privileges, his academic appointments, and his access to any Aegis facility, effective immediately. Marcus lunged toward me. The security team intercepted him, their hands closing around his arms, their expressions utterly indifferent to his desperation. Vivian, you can't do this to me. I loved you. I did love you in the beginning. Everything I did, the patent, the reports, the lies, I did it because I needed to be someone. I needed to be more than just your husband. You were so brilliant, so untouchable, and I was nothing. I was a mediocre surgeon married to a genius, and it was destroying me. Can't you understand that? I looked at him. This man I had loved, this man I had trusted, this man who had stood on a stage and read a fake psychiatric report to 2,000 people and expected me to disappear, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 5 years. Closure. No, I said quietly. I can't understand that. Because if I were married to a genius, I would be proud, I would be supportive, I would celebrate her achievements instead of stealing them. But you couldn't do that, because you don't see other people as people, you see them as resources, tools to be used and discarded. I was your tool for 5 years, and now I'm discarding you. I turned to the security team. Take him out. And Ms. Reed too. Make sure the federal investigators know where to find them. Marcus was dragged toward the exit, still shouting, my name, threats, please, all tangled together in a desperate, incoherent flood. Tiffany stumbled behind him, her scarlet dress catching on a chair, her belly leading the way, her face a mask of tears and fury and dawning, catastrophic comprehension. When the doors slammed shut behind them, the ballroom erupted, applause, cheers, the flash of cameras, journalists swarming toward the stage, toward Julian Cross, toward me. The hospital board members at table 2 were already on their phones, their faces gray, their careers imploding in real time. The pharmaceutical sales representative was hugging the retired cardiologist, Dr. Helen Mirren was shaking her head with the grim satisfaction of someone who had seen a lot of injustice in her career and was deeply glad to finally witness some justice. Julian Cross leaned close. Your grandmother called. She said to tell you she's proud of you, and that she wants to know if you're finally ready to come work at the corporate level full-time. I laughed at my grandmother, the one who had lent me the money to make my first investment in Aegis. The one who had told me on my wedding day, hide your light, Vivian, until you're ready to blind them. She had been waiting for this phone call for 5 years. Tell her I'll call her tomorrow, I said. I have a few things to wrap up here first. The federal investigation took 3 months. Marcus Hale was indicted on 17 counts of patent fraud, intellectual property theft, and conspiracy. He pled not guilty, but the evidence was insurmountable. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Sentencing, 12 years in federal prison, followed by permanent revocation of his medical license and a restitution order that seized every asset he had ever owned. The house, the cars, the offshore accounts he'd been hiding from the IRS. Tiffany Reed gave birth to a daughter, not a son, 2 months before Marcus's sentencing. She testified against him in exchange for immunity on the lesser charges. Her testimony was devastating. She admitted that Marcus had instructed her to seduce the hospital board chairman, that he had fabricated the psychiatric report with the help of a disgraced psychologist who owed him money, that he had been planning to divorce me and claim half of everything I owned. The baby was placed in her parents' custody. Tiffany moved back to her hometown in Indiana. She was last seen working as a receptionist at a veterinary clinic, her modeling career long dead. The hospital board was purged. Every member who had voted to suspend my privileges was removed, and 3 of them faced charges of criminal conspiracy. The psychiatric institute that had produced the fraudulent report was investigated and shut down. Dr. Reinhardt lost his license and his freedom 6 months after Marcus's conviction. He was sentenced to 3 years for perjury and medical fraud. And me? I stood in my new office at Aegis Medical International's corporate headquarters, a corner suite overlooking Central Park, a lab coat still hanging in my closet for the days when I chose to operate instead of administrate. I had published a paper on the long-term outcomes of the heart valve under my own name for the first time, and it had been cited more than any other cardiac surgery paper in the past decade. I had accepted the Surgeon of the Decade award at the following year's summit, and my acceptance speech had been titled, What They Tried to Bury. The video had 18 million views. Julian Cross remained my CEO. My grandmother joined the board as an honorary member, and I finally stopped hiding. I stopped shrinking. I stopped apologizing for being brilliant. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk Dr. Hart. My name is Adrian Sterling, and I know this is out of the blue, but I'm the CEO of Sterling Global, and I've been following your career with immense admiration. I'd like to discuss a partnership between our organizations. If you're interested, I'd love to take you to dinner. And oh, pressure. S asterisk. Adrian Sterling, again. The man was persistent. I wondered if he had a radar for powerful women rebuilding their lives, or if he was just genuinely interested in partnership. Either way, I was willing to find out. I typed back. Asterisk, Mr. Sterling, I've heard a lot about you. Some of it good. Dinner sounds acceptable, but I'm paying for my own meal. Dr. Vivian Hart. Asterisk. I put down my phone and looked out at the city, the towers glittering in the afternoon sun, the sky vast and open and full of possibility. Somewhere out there, my ex-husband was sitting in a federal prison cell, learning to live with the consequences of his choices. Somewhere, his mistress was raising a child who would grow up knowing her father was a convicted fraud. Somewhere, the people who had enabled them were rebuilding their lives from the rubble I had made of their careers. And I was here, free, whole, powerful. Not because I was lucky, not because I was rich, but because I had finally learned that the only way to stop being a victim was to stop being silent. I had been silent for 5 years. I would never be silent again,